This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Hayato Hori. What's going on, man?
Good. How's it going, Brian?
It's going. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you. So, hey, tell us a little bit about what you do, because you do something pretty interesting. You live in California and you invest in the Midwest, right?
Yeah, I do. So personally, I invest in the Midwest, but I actually have a company called RocketOffr, and we wholesale properties out also in the Midwest, but we've also started going into places like Texas, Florida, North Carolina, just to feed some of the funds that we're working with, but mainly we are in the Midwest market.
All right, so you live in California. What made you start investing out in the Midwest versus investing in your backyard?
Yeah, so California, I was just out of college when I first started dabbling into real estate and starting to learn about it, actually. So I was like, well, let's see what's around here. And California is so expensive. There's nothing less than $1 million out here if you're trying to buy a decent property. And even to flip a property, you need a ton of capital, which I didn't have. So I had a bunch of side hustles and stuff I was working on in college, and I saved up about $15,000, but that doesn't really get you anywhere in California. So that's when I was thinking, okay, how can I go and invest in areas? And my roommate at the time, he actually started a turnkey business where he would renovate the property and he would put a tenant in there and sell them off to investors who want cash flow. And I was like, well, that sounds interesting. Let me see if I can invest in that and see how a rental property does. And so I started looking more into it, asked him a lot of questions about it. And his market initially was in Memphis, Tennessee. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? If I lose this $15,000, it's a learning experience, whatever. Let me just buy this rental property from you and see what it actually takes to own a rental property, how it actually performs out there. So that's what I did. I bought my first property in Memphis, Tennessee for $70,000, put 20% down, was $14,000. He helped with some closing costs. So all in all, I was able to go into the property at like $15,000, which I saved up, and it cash flowed every month. And, it was a great market. So I was like, wow, how can I do more of this? How can I get more capital to do this? And I knew I always wanted to start my own business. And that's when I started to think about wholesaling properties and got into that business.
Nice. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. So you kind of just stumbled into it and it going virtual.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when you're doing virtual and you're, say, wholesaling properties and things like that, what obstacles are you getting? Because you're not physically going to look at the property, right? Like yourself.
No, I'm not going into the property myself. So it was interesting because we started December 2019. That's when we started the company officially. I had a W-2 job then before, and I was working there for about 2 years after graduating from college. And I made the decision to say, hey, let's just start this company, see how it goes with a few of my partners. And when we dove in, beginning of February is kind of when the news about COVID came out. We're like, oh God, what's going to happen? We have no clue what's about to happen. But the good thing that we had going for us was we already initially set up our business to be virtual, because I'm in California. We couldn't do everything that we wanted to in terms of walking to the property, doing the inspections on our own, since we're not there. But we had to set it up that way initially. So what we do is we have partners on the ground that can actually walk the properties for us. They'll take pictures. We even have an inspection company called Inspectify that we work with that can do inspections pretty much anywhere nationwide. And they're super good logistically. So that's who we went with as well. And we have just a team that can go out and take care of all the stuff virtually without me actually having to walk those properties. So it was great that we initially had that set up prior to the COVID coming up, because when that did hit, we were already set up to be able to do business that way.
That's pretty solid. So what? So you do marketing, you get the deals, or you get the people on the phone, get it under contract, or tell someone where they come out, and then you just send an inspector out or someone to take pictures, and then you can just run comps, and based on the inspection report, give a reasonable offer.
Yeah, so we went through a lot of iterations. When I first started, I had no clue what I was doing. So what we did was we hired about 10 cold callers on Upwork, and we're like, here, go ahead and try to call these people and see if you can get something under contract. We didn't really know like what price we even had to get it under contract for or whatnot. The best idea that we knew was like to go to investors and ask them, hey, what did you guys pay for that property that you recently flipped? And how do you guys run your numbers? So that's what we're going off of. So we initially targeted investors first, saw what they were looking for, and then try to cater what they wanted to buy. So that's how we initially started, and that worked great. And then after hiring those 10 cold callers on Upwork, we quickly realized that there's a lot of bad apple too that we had to go through. So it was a lot of hiring and firing there. But one of the people that we hired there still is with us to this day. So that's really awesome. And we found one or two people who were really good, and they actually were able to get properties under contract. And we set everything up using Podio because that's what we heard everyone does and everyone uses in wholesaling. But quickly realized that it wasn't really for us. And so we switched over to Zoho CRM, which we manage everything through now. And with Zoho CRM, I mean, Zoho's a crazy company. I didn't know they had all these different apps and tools to be able to play together. So we use like Zoho Sign instead of DocuSign, which talks to Zoho CRM. We use Zoho Sales IQ, which is like a chat bot on our website, and we can talk to customers that way. So there's a lot of things that Zoho provided that Podio couldn't. And so we switched over there. And then initially we're like, okay, cold calling is great, but there's always a capacity on how many people that they can talk to per day. And we wanted a little bit more, we wanted to talk to more people who were interested, who we knew were interested, and we're trying to figure out how we can do that quicker. So then we went into text message marketing, and that's something that we currently do today, as well as cold calling. But that seemed to work out really, really well. And so we tried to ramp that up. We tried postcards as well. So we really tested everything in the marketing space, like digital ads as well. But really then just honed in and refined our processes and really adjusting to what's working the best then, because it always changes in the real estate space. It seems like one day the postcards are working really well, and then the next day the paid ads are working well, and then it's texting. So we're just trying to go and figure out what is going to get the best leads for the cheapest amount.
Yeah, and that's what I hear from people a lot. Cold calling and texting, they do get like really cheap cost per deals. I mean, it's a lot of legwork in finding the right people to actually do it, but I hear there's really low cost per acquisition to go in that route.
It is for sure.
You know, it's funny. I actually got into business and marketing back in the 2000s on Odesk, which turned into Upwork.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Upwork is where I started marketing. Yeah,
no way.
In digital marketing, yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, Upwork is awesome. I use it for so many small projects that I need to get done that I don't have a team for. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah. Anyone listening too, yeah, go to Upwork. It's upwork.com. You can find pretty much anyone that has different specialties, and you can hire them for 5 hours a week, 2 hours a week, 20 hours a week, and it just bills on an hourly basis. So it's really a nice place to find people, and you can find help quickly.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so, okay, so you got these people cold calling, you got them telemarketing, texting, and you're locking down deals. You send out the person to check it out, you get it under contract, and then what do? You're just wholesaling it to the institutions, or you have a buyer's list, or what?
So initially we just had a handful of people that we knew were buying in that area, just mom and pop investors. And so those are the people who we're catering to initially. And what we would do is we get the properties under contract. We try to get as many pictures as possible. If the owners can give us pictures, great. But we notice that a lot of times there's not the best at taking pictures. They take janky pictures, or they have like an iPhone 2 and you just don't see like any pictures. It's all pixelated. So we started to send out people who can actually take pictures, like good pictures. And then we also started sending inspectors out, because I know a lot of investors like to see inspection reports. And then we would just package that up and put that on our site and email it to the investors that wanted to see properties in that area. So that's how I initially did it. And then over the course of 2 years, we built a relationship with some institutional players and funds, and we were feeding them and selling properties to them beginning of this year, even end of last year as well. But as you may know too, I mean, a lot of funds and institutions have stopped buying, so, or at least halted buying for now. So we're just trying to adjust and see who we can go ahead and sell to. Right now we have one institution that is still buying, so we're selling to them too, but we're also still selling to the mom and pop investors as well, which have also significantly dropped right now.
Yeah, and I know the mom and pops, I would think that they're not buying as many. Like most guys are going to buy one property, fix it up, rent it out or flip it, and then 4 months later buy another one. Yep. Versus the institutions, they can buy in bulk.
Exactly.
Yeah. Buy box.
Yeah, the institution's buying like 20, 30, 40 plus deals a month, whereas the mom and pop, yeah, you're exactly right. We send them one deal, they're like, okay, great. And then we were like, hey, do you guys want to buy another one? And they're like, well, no, we have to finish this flip first, and then we can go buy another one. And that's 3 to 4 months, even 6 months sometimes. So there's that lag period, and we don't have that with institutions.
Right. Now, you hold some as rentals also, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so, and you do Section 8, or do you do just rent to the public, or what?
Initially, I was just putting cash tenants in there, and then I stumbled upon people talking about Section 8, namely Tom Cruise, I believe his name is. He kind of blew up on TikTok and whatnot, and I'm like, wow, you can really do that with Section 8, and they pay more than market rent, and the government guarantees it? How's that even possible? And I kept looking at it, looking into it, and I was like, okay, well, let's try it. So I bought a rental property in Detroit, Michigan, and sure enough, like I already bought it with a Section 8 tenant in there. I bought it for about $75,000 or so, and there was a Section 8 tenant in there paying $950 every single month, which was covered by the government. And actually, usually the tenant pays a small portion of it, but in this case, it was 100% covered by the government. And utilities are also included there too. So they're covering utilities plus the rent, and it cash flowed anywhere between $200 to $250 on that. And that's because the market Section 8 rent was about like $1,200 to $1,300 on that property. But because the tenant was there for a long time and the landlord never increased the rent, it was just staying at $950. So the plan was to just increase the rent. And the best part is the tenant themselves don't actually pay for it. So you're just requesting the government to increase the rent for you. And if they approve it and they go and do the inspection and you pass it, then you can raise it up. And again, it doesn't really affect the tenant at all. So it's kind of like a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, what are those inspections like whenever you're, I know initially if you buy a property and you're trying to do Section 8, you have a inspection. What are those like?
Yeah, they're pretty picky on them. So like if there's like a small crack on the floor, they'll be like, hey, go ahead and fix that. If there's like chipped paint or like there's some rot in the stairs or whatever, obviously you fix that as a landlord. So it's stuff that you're gonna have to fix up anyway when you're turning over a tenant or if you're trying to maintain your property correctly. So I see it honestly as something that is good and necessary anyway, because it makes you maintain the property and you know exactly what the condition is of your property every single year. Whereas some landlords, we see, I mean, the properties that we get a lot sent over to us where the owner wants to sell, I mean, they just haven't maintained and upkept their property well, and that's why they want to sell most of the times too. And so if they're not upkeeping it, you're going to have, just your property trashed, and you don't want that anyway. So I think it's a good thing just overall to maintain. And the process is pretty simple. They go in, they have a checklist of things that you need to go fix. They'll give you that checklist. You just have to go ahead and fix every single item, and you call them back in to do a reinspection. Once you pass the reinspection, then they're going to be able to approve it and go ahead and start sending you payments again. So that's pretty much how it works with the Section 8, at least in Detroit. And again, it's not very, very difficult.
Yeah, now what happens if they trash your property? Because I know, not necessarily even Section 8, but I've had tenants that you just come in and they just completely trash your property. You got like $10,000 worth of repairs. Like normally I have to eat that unless I have the security deposit, but with Section 8, what do you do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. You can still evict them. You can still evict the tenant if they're not paying. You can actually go to whatever, Eden or Section 8, and you can tell them, hey, the tenant is actually destroying this property. They're not taking care of this property at all. And if it ever comes to a place where you do need to evict the tenant, then that tenant is on the line, because then they're not going to issue them the voucher to get another place anymore. So you, as a Section 8 tenant, you really don't want to be red flagged by the program, because if you are, you lose your voucher. Now you have no free rent. And so a lot of times, I mean, if you're screening the tenants correctly, many times the Section 8 tenants will take care of properties pretty well, at least in my experience, versus whereas the cash tenants, they have nothing to lose from trashing your place. So I've had cash tenants trash my property way more than Section 8 tenants, which is pretty crazy to think about.
You know what? That does make sense too. I never thought about that, because if they trash it and they lose the option to have Section 8 in their vouchers in the future, that's a big penalty. That's worse than losing the security deposit.
Yeah, it's worse. I mean, they're losing out on free housing. I mean, how do you not get free housing? You know, that's just crazy. So they really do want to take care. And Section 8 also likes to give vouchers to families as well. And so if you have a family, more than likely they have other people that they're taking care of, their children and whatnot. And so those people tend to want to take the property, they want to take the voucher really seriously, and they want to take care of the property as much as possible too.
I gotcha. That makes sense. I saw somewhere you were talking about too. So say you have a property that you're a little bit under market rent, you were talking about like some places will give first month free, some places give different things. What was your strategy you were talking about?
Oh, was that like a recent video that I posted?
Yeah, with gift cards.
Gift cards, yeah. I've never seen gift cards like be something to attract tenants, but I saw it in a market, 'cause I'm doing a lot of analysis on properties and in places like Charlotte, North Carolina, some places in Texas that I'm analyzing deals in. I've seen rents drop quite a lot recently. So I've seen it listed for $1,900, for example, and 2 weeks later, that $1,900 rent has been dropped down to $1,800 because they couldn't find anyone. And after 30 days, it's dropped down to like $1,700. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And I've seen a lot of offers because the rents are dropping, and the property managers and whatnot, they're trying to get the tenants in as soon as possible because they don't want to be losing money and have it vacant. So I've seen a creative one that they said, hey, I'll give you a $300 American Express gift card if you just move in today. And they're trying to uphold and keep the rent price from going down. And I thought that was really interesting. I've seen people say, hey, the first month is free, or, you know, you don't have to pay maybe your security deposit, or half of your security deposit is needed in order to move in. But it was interesting to me that a gift card was an option, because I can see how some people psychologically might think, well, there's $300 I'm getting in my pocket, whereas like a month's free rent, it's like you don't see that in your pocket. So some people might be like, well, that's not something I want to move forward with. So I'm super curious. I've never tried that on my rental properties, because a lot of them, we have more than enough applicants. At least that's what the property manager that I work with tells me, that we have enough applicants where we can kind of pick and choose. But in those markets, if I ever do buy a property in those markets, then it's interesting to see like, okay, that's something that we could try out if we're low on tenant applications.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I see a lot in the, like the big multis here in Pittsburgh. A lot of them will be like first month free, stuff like that. I've never seen a gift card, but that does make sense, because a lot of times first month free, they're still going with cash out of pocket. It's still a security deposit. It's like a hook.
Yeah, they're like, and they see it a lot too. They're like, I've seen that offer before. It's whatever. But gift card, they're like, oh, well, I can go to dinner tonight and do a really nice. Right. Yeah. So I don't know if it works, but I've seen it.
What do you think about tax assessments? Putting disputes in on those?
Oh yeah, I think everyone should, especially in like higher priced markets. So I buy my personal rental properties in Detroit, Michigan. So really, I mean, the property taxes can go up, and there are areas that, have appreciated, but it hasn't been like Texas or Florida, for example, or, Atlanta, Georgia, where your neighbor's home or your home in Atlanta maybe 2 years ago was 150 grand, and now it's worth 250 or 300. So for people there, like when their tax assessments are getting revised and renewed, they're seeing it double maybe in some cases. And then in that instance, especially now that the market's dropping, I think it's a really good time to start disputing tax assessments and trying to get your property taxes lower than what it's been assessed for. And I've not personally done it because my tax assessments haven't gone through the roof like in some of these markets, but if I had a property in these markets, guaranteed I will be disputing them, and I will be saying, hey, I want to go and get this reassessed because right now my property's not worth what you assessed it for at January of 2022.
Yeah, and you know what? I do that on every single property. I actually just got 2 checks yesterday from on one of my properties that refunded me from 2021 and 2022 taxes.
Oh, really?
Every time I buy a property, I send it over to the attorney. It cost me like $400 or $500, and he appeals it. I do it on every single property I buy.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's so smart, right? Because like it's free money coming back to your pocket. It's money that you otherwise would have paid, which makes no sense. And a lot of times those tax assessments are like ridiculous. The numbers, they don't even know how they get it. So I think disputing it is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and especially when you're buying junkers too, because I always have to send them over pictures and repairs going into it, things like that. Mm-hmm. And you're buying a house in a crappy condition. It can't be worth that much.
Yeah.
And so I always recommend doing that on every property. Even if it costs $500, you'll make that back, but then you have all the future savings on the lower assessed value as well.
Exactly. And it's tax deductible too, I think.
100%. Yep. That's cool, man. Hey, well, yeah, we're just about out of time. Yeah, I want to tell you, thanks for coming on. How can everybody reach out to you if they wanted to, and how can you help them out? Because I know you have properties that people can buy. Like,
yeah,
now they can get a hold of you.
So they can get a hold of me on Instagram at HAYANTOOO. I know it's kind of weird, but I couldn't get my full name. I thought I had a unique name, but not unique enough, I guess. And it's the same handle on TikTok. I'm active there as well, but Instagram messaging is probably easier. And if you want to check out some of our deals, you can go to RocketOffr.com/invest. RocketOffr is spelled RocketOffr. So if anyone wants to check out some of the properties that we have, feel free to. And if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to help. So feel free to reach out to me on any of those channels. And thank you so much for having me on the show, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for coming on. And thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, get out there, crush it, close some deals. Until next time, we'll see you guys.